Hi there, and welcome to the HDFS Career Podcast. My name is Dr. Lori Bullock, and I'm an assistant professor in human development and family studies at MSU. I teach several courses in the department, and one of them is HDFS 270, which introduces students to this major and to the field of family science. Quite often, students who are new to our major are not quite sure of the career options they have with a degree in human development and family studies. Some students know exactly what they want to do, and some students aren't quite sure and can sometimes feel overwhelmed. And there are other students who are in our major but plan to pursue a career in the healthcare field. These would be students who know that they want to be nurses or doctors or child life specialists, occupational therapists, and so on. The purpose of this podcast is to bring professionals on from many different areas. Each episode, I invite a professional from the community who has a background in HDFS or one that is similar to HDFS. I'm so excited you joined the podcast, and I hope today's episode will be helpful to you as you consider your career options. Hello, HDFS students and colleagues. Welcome to the HDFS Career Podcast, where we talk with professionals who have a background in HDFS or one that is similar to HDFS, and we find out about their career journey. I'm really excited for you to meet Drew Graber, who was a former HDFS student and is now a mental health counselor. So let me tell you a little bit more about her. Drew Graber is a mental health counselor helping individuals work through life's difficulties by providing them a safe, empowering, healing space. Drew earned a Bachelor of Arts degree in Human Development and Family Studies from Michigan State University. She then earned a Master of Arts in Marriage, Family, and Couples Counseling from Western Michigan University. She is currently a limited licensed professional counselor in the state of Michigan, and that allows her to diagnose and treat mental health disorders. As an LLPC, she receives supervision from a fully licensed professional counselor on a regular basis. A majority of her experience has been working with individuals and families utilizing techniques of person-centered therapy, dialectical behavioral therapy, and solution-focused therapy. She has had the opportunity to work with a diverse group of children, adolescents, adults, and families in different settings. Currently, Drew works at Adolescent and Family Behavioral Health Services, working in private practice with adults and adolescents. Her goal is to provide a safe and affirming place within the therapy office where clients can experience a balance of feeling supported while also challenged to grow by being provided with new tools and perspectives. Drew, thank you so much for joining the podcast today. I'm real excited to have you here today.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
That's awesome. It's wonderful. So I will, my first question to you is, can you tell us a little bit about you and what you've been doing since you graduated from MSU?
Yeah, definitely. So I graduated from MSU in December of 2018. So about 5 years ago. And I am now living back in Grand Rapids. I went through an internship after, well, I guess during my last semester at MSU, which had turned into a job through an adoption agency. And I had worked there for 2 years. So this was 2019 and then all of 2020, which was a crazy time. And then at that point, I was working from home, doing school from home, because I had started my master's program in the fall of 2019. And I was looking to be around people again and not just be at home. So I got into the world of residential work with adolescents. So I worked at Pine Rest for kind of the end of 2020 all the way to the beginning of 2022, I believe. No, the beginning of 2023. Time is flying.
Yeah.
So I had worked at Pine Rest there, and throughout my master's, and then had gotten an internship at the end of my master's at the private practice that I'm currently working at, and then got hired in there afterwards. So, yeah, it's been kind of a whirlwind the last 5 years, but has been really, really great, and I'm happy to be where I'm at right now.
Yeah, you've done a lot then. There's
A
a
little
lot in
bit.
the last 5 years. So
Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of information to unpack there then.
Hmm.
So your internship in your junior senior year in HDFS, that was
Hmm.
with a foster care agency, you said?
It was actually, we did direct care or direct consent adoption. So we didn't deal with the foster care system at all, which was, I know, is such a huge world and has so many other pieces to it. But so yeah, so it was kind of a smaller adoption agency. And so we just did the direct care or direct consent adoption.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So adoption, I think I heard wrong or something
No,
like
you're
that.
good.
Adoption care, and from there
Mhm.
that turned into a full-time job right after graduation. All
Yep.
right. And
It was a little bit, it wasn't fully full time. It kind of had progressed in that direction. Being at a smaller agency, I don't think that they had the amount of work that I could have been full time. But through high school and college and all of that, I was serving. So I was doing kind of both of those things at the time.
okay, gotcha. All
Yeah.
right. So really good information. It sounds like you gained some good experiences also in that time working there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think I was my first time really being out having a real job per se. And being in the field of what I was hoping to get into, utilizing my degree, those kinds of things. So it's really a exciting time to be able to utilize that and feel like I was helping and being a part of something.
Yeah, yeah, I can get understand that. And so then what made you decide to go on to earn your master's degree, and what made you choose counseling?
Yeah. So I think I had always known throughout, well, I guess my journey to get to HDFS was a um a long one, but I am so happy that I ended there. And I have that degree. And I think once I finally was in that field and doing those things, it kind of just clicked with me that counseling was the thing I wanted to do. I had always been very interested in families and how an individual can impact an entire family system. I myself grew up in a different family dynamic, so that was something that I was always interested um, in helping individuals and being the best version of themselves. So it kind of seemed like a natural um, transition to go into counseling. Um, I was definitely nervous of applying to grad school. Um, and so I think I had applied soon after I graduated from Michigan State. So it wasn't kind of a natural transition. So I had a little bit of time off and then started and got accepted into Western Michigan. I still wanted to be in the Grand Rapids area. Um, so that was a huge decision in why I had chose Western. They had a downtown Grand Rapids location, as well as at the time, I didn't have, I think I was a little naive in understanding counseling and the degrees that are required to be able to counsel individuals. Um, So I didn't realize at the time that you could have a master's in social work and still do therapy. I had just always assumed you had to have a counseling degree to do counseling. So I was specifically looking at counseling programs, which Western had a really great one, and then also allowed me to stay in the location that I wanted to. So it ended up working out well. Um, so yeah, so then I had chosen to go there and continue kind of my education in that way.
Okay, awesome. That makes sense. I think
Mhm.
for a lot of reasons. So, and the location is one of them.
Mhm.
So are you glad that you took that time between graduating from MSU and starting your master's program?
Yeah, definitely. I think it was the perfect amount of time. I think being able to just jump right into it might have been a little overwhelming. And I think any longer than maybe like a year would have been too long for me to still be in the groove of school. So I think it was that perfect in between spot of enough time to be able to kind of enjoy that last summer before kind of really diving into my master's and kind of knowing after that it's full on career mode and all of those things. So it was definitely nice to have a little bit of time, but not too much time.
Yeah, yeah, that I got you. That makes sense there. Excuse me. Um, so do you think that that gap year kind of helped your transition into graduate school, or what was that transition like for you?
It was honestly really challenging. I had always held or kind of thought of grad school and getting your master's at such this elevated level, I guess you could say. Like it felt a very big deal to me. And the thought of like, I can get my master's, like that was, especially I think I was the first one in my family to be able to do those things. Those kinds of just ideas. It was very, I think, overwhelming for sure. And I remember the first week of classes, and we would have to like introduce ourselves and do some of that. And my heart was just racing. Like it took me a little bit to realize like, okay, yeah, I'm doing this. I know I want to be doing this. And it's very different from undergrad when, you have certain classes that are involved in what you're doing, but there is so many people here that are so passionate about what we're specifically learning. Um, and it's all ages, it's not just, I was lucky enough to be able to take a little bit of time and then go directly into my master's, but not everyone is able to do that. And sometimes it happens later on in life or a career change or those kinds of things. So also being as young as I was going into that, and having other people around me that had so much maybe more life experience or those kinds of things, I think played a toll a little bit as well.
So it made you feel a little bit like overwhelmed or intimidated or something. Okay.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
yeah. And what about the coursework in your master's program? Was that tough to transition into? Did you feel like it was quite a bit different from your undergrad courses?
Yes and no. I think it was in a way easier only because I knew I was really passionate and really enjoyed what I was learning. Not that I didn't enjoy everything that I was learning in undergrad, but there's also other classes that you just kind of have to take or, are required. Um, and so with your master's, you're really focusing in on what it is that you want to be doing and applying that to afterwards. So I think in that sense, it was easier. Um, Within my degree, there was a lot more papers, um, and projects, less like tests and quizzes and those kinds of things, which I was very thankful for because I'm not a great test taker. So that, I think, piece was really nice too. I really only took, I think, 3 classes at a time, which is considered full time. So that piece was also, I remember, you take more classes in undergrad, and I was like, I'm only taking 3. Like I couldn't wrap my head around, like, that doesn't seem like a lot, but the work is a little bit more involved, I guess you can say. Um, so I think that in the moment I was like, wait, what? So yeah, I think that answered your question.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely did. Yeah, gives students watching what that transition might be like. And I think also when students do take like a gap year or some gap kind of a gap time, I think they find that they feel more focused and maybe ready to learn at that level. Whereas when you go right from undergrad to master's to the graduate degree program, sometimes students don't expect that change in like how the coursework will be, a little bit more dense reading, lots of writing, like you mentioned. And so they might not feel prepared for that and may not be as focused, or could experience burnout.
Yeah,
You
definitely.
know, especially like you mentioned, there are so many classes you take at once in undergrad and then go into this intense work. So I'd like to find out what kind of experiences students are having now when they go to grad school and the differences. Um,
Yeah, definitely.
yeah. So can I ask a few questions then about your degree program, the master's
Yeah.
program over there at Western? So was that how long was the program first?
So it depends for everyone, depending on if you were going full time or, part time. I went full time. I think I took during the summers, I only took maybe 1 or 2 classes in each um like
Summer session?
semester that they have. Yeah, summer
Yeah.
sessions. It's been so long. I feel like I've been done with school. I don't remember everything. So yeah, so those summer sessions, I think maybe like a few times I didn't take classes one of the summer sessions and like did on others, but um I started fall of 2019 and I graduated December of 2022. So about 2 years was the entire program, which within the counseling education, master's in counseling, you had to choose a like kind of a specialty. So there was either clinical mental health, school counseling, rehabilitation counseling, um, I think like a college counseling, I want to say, or something along those lines, and then marriage, family, and couple. So that was the one that I had chose, was marriage, family, and couple. Um, so that one also required, if you wanted to get your MFT license, it required a 9 month long or 8 month long internship versus I think the regular 6 months. So that's why it also was a little bit longer. So basically, my last year, all of 2022, was practicum and my internship. So it was really much more field work or like actually doing therapy that last year. So the first year was more classes and those kinds of things. And then that second year was more of my practicum and internship.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's really good information to know then. And then so for your practicum, what did you do for that? Was that like gaining some hours and some experience with the counseling, supervised counseling?
Yeah. So it was, we, through Western, they have a counseling center, just like most colleges do. So we saw clients that were coming to the college counseling center. Um, so at the time we were virtual. So it was very different, kind of transitioning. I did get lucky in my like techniques class, meaning like when you were kind of learning the different ways in which you're doing counseling. It was my spring semester of 2020. So I did half in person and then did half online. So I was able to get some in-person experience of doing therapy, which looking back on it, I really appreciate because I am doing both now. Um, so, so yeah, so we were seeing clients that were coming to that, and then also had like a professor also on the Zoom call. Um, and then we also had to have what was called like bridging hours. So not all of our hours that we needed were could be fulfilled through the counseling center. So we also had to find outside hours, um, which I was working at Pine Rest at the time, and I was able to get my hours through them. So that piece was really nice and bridging that gap.
Yeah, that's really nice that you were able to do that then, instead of a third place. So I'm glad
Yeah.
that you're able to do that. And then
Yeah.
how was your internship different than your practicum?
So internship is very much your kind of, there was opportunities for you where people had done their internships prior, where you could look on kind of like a website that had like an Excel spreadsheet that had like all the locations. So I kind of reached out and did different interviews and such. So it was really, my internship was full on. I was doing therapy with clients. Jumped, I was in the deep end of all of it. At least specifically at my site that I'm at. So it was very different. I think that was the biggest transition in my master's, was going from practicum where I had maybe two top three clients, um, and I was being supervised and like had my professor in the Zoom call with me, typing in the chat like, hey, say this, or hey, try this, or things like that, to my internship being alone in a room with another individual and really, utilizing everything that I've learned up to that point in that space.
Yeah, so they really took the training wheels off.
Yes, yes, yes. I remember the very first client I had, and I was like, "You want me to what?" I was like, "I don't think I'm prepared yet." But I think it's one of those things that all of the school and all of the training, it really just kicks in, and somehow, some way, you figure it out. And I think that's something I still talk about with the practice that I'm at, is I appreciated that piece a ton, because I was able to, I think in my practicum, I was playing a therapist in a sense. I think there's this idea of what it means to be a therapist, or how they're supposed to act, or what they're supposed to say, and what they're supposed to do. And of course, there's ethics and all of those things that go along with that. But I think my internship allowed me to figure out who I was as a therapist, and not feeling like I was fitting a mold of like my supervisor, or had to be, a robot or do different things. So I think in that space, I grew a ton and learned a lot, not only about myself as a therapist, but I think, just the work as a therapist as well.
Yeah. So sounds like you really like you went into it a little bit nervous and scared, but you really needed to tap into the confidence of what you had learned and the experiences you had gained. It just kind of started. Then you, like you
Yeah.
said, you figured it out. Okay.
Hmm.
And so what does supervision look like then at the internship level? Because it sounds like it wasn't as close and hands-on. But I'm sure you still had to have it. So what did it look like?
Yeah. So I was getting supervision once a week. No, I had to get, supervision, it was once or twice a week, I think, that I was like meeting with my supervisor for an hour, talking about my caseload and my clients that I was seeing. There were so many opportunities outside of that, though. I was in person. I had to be, in the office. I couldn't do any telehealth from home or anything. I did some telehealth, but in the office. So I had a lot of different people around me that I could go to and be like, hey, this is happening, or hey, this is going on. What do I do about that? And I didn't necessarily have to I had a smaller caseload than I think I maybe saw 10 to 12 people a week around. So definitely a decent amount, but compared to what I'm seeing now, a little bit different. So I was kind of I definitely spoke with my supervisor daily, but I think actually the supervision and talking about my clients once or twice a week.
Okay, sorry, I had muted myself because my heater was making noise, and then it wouldn't unmute. So it sounds like you had lots of support from your colleagues around you too. So the meetings with your supervisor, but then the support network around you, kind of a safety net that you could tap into.
Yeah, and I guess I didn't mention, I was still, even during my internship, you still had an internship class that I was in. So we were also getting supervision from like our professor at the time. So there was support in multiple ways in that aspect.
Okay. Yeah, and it makes sense that there would be. And so was the course like a lot of reflection of your processes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was a lot more of, hey, is there anything that you are struggling with? How do we be better therapists? What things, I think we like kind of touch base on different things throughout the semester in different areas. But then able to also talk about our clients and what was going on if we had any like consultations or things like that.
Yeah. Okay. That's great. So definitely good support for you along the way. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so so you had the internship class while you were doing those things. And so sounds like you were done with all of your other coursework then at that point?
Yeah, I'm pretty positive maybe I had like a class or two. But at that point, I pretty much, my last year, I maybe had a class or two, but it was mostly the field work and doing my practicum and internship. And then you obviously had the practicum and internship classes, which also were required too.
Yeah. Okay. Right. That makes sense. And so I think that gives our listeners a pretty good idea of how that goes. And then, so to get your licensing, then do you take that right at the end of your program, or do you have to like work some amount of time in the field before you take it? How does that go?
So you can do either or. So there were opportunities when I was getting closer to the end of my internship that I could have applied to take the licensing exam. I didn't, and I still have not taken my licensing exam. I plan on after my wedding and honeymoon to do so. But you need 3,000 hours, and then 100 supervision hours. And then taking and passing the licensing exam in order to be fully licensed. So even if you do take it, right out of school, or during school, you still have to do those 3,000 hours and the 100 hours of supervision before getting that license. So it really is up to the person and preference of what that looks like. Looking back, I would have maybe liked to have done it, when I was in it, but I think there was so much going on. I was, still getting done with school, and studying for this exam on top of that felt a little overwhelming. And then, yeah, so.
Okay. Yeah, I think like you said, it depends. Everybody's life is different. And so however it
Mhm.
works best in your life. So then
Yeah.
when you graduate with your LLPC, and then the exam that you take for licensing is what earns you the LPC.
Yes, that is correct. So you have to, um, like once you graduate and all grades are like in and finalized, and all of your internship hours are calculated and all of that signed and good, you basically turn all of that information over to the state. They verify it. You have to do like fingerprinting, and you have to do a professional disclosure statement, and I think a background check, and those kinds of things. And then it took, if you go to a K-CREP school, that process is a little bit quicker. So I graduated in December, and I got my license by February, which you probably would get it by January, honestly, but I accidentally messed something up in my professional disclosure statement. So it took me a little bit longer, but it's a pretty quick turnaround between the time of graduation to getting your license and really being able to then work.
Yeah, 2 months for December to February. That's not really all
Yeah.
that long. Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And then so for studying, are there certain study materials you use, like things you save from your coursework, or are there like books or programs you've joined or will join when you go to study for it?
Yeah, so that was also a big help, of being in my internship. They had kind of talked, or not my internship, yeah, my internship. They had kind of talked about it, or my coworkers. Even one of my coworkers right now is, still hasn't completed it and kind of studying right now and working on it. So she had these discs, that are, I don't know what the name of them is. I can always look it up and send it to you, at a later date too. But it's kind of a guy that talks through like each different section. I think there's like 12 chapters that go into it, and discusses basically everything that we learned in school and that will be on the exam. So I downloaded a lot of that during my internship time. And I plan on listening to it in my car on my way to and from work some days. There's also a book. And then my supervisor right now, we kind of have been talking about it. She had said that she, had a friend she really studied with and did those things with, so that it was helpful to bounce ideas off of and hold you accountable in studying for those things. So I think that's also something to always think about as well.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds like a good plan. And then you've got, like you said, someone to bounce ideas off of, feel a sense of support, and maybe hold each other accountable to stay up on the studying.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
first, yeah, but first we want you to enjoy your wedding and your honeymoon, and then
Yes. I'm
yeah,
like, once that's over, then I can fully focus on that and kind of get that done. Which I'm at, I would say a little, I've been working for the last about year. So I have about 1,300 hours of the 3,000. Um, so I'm a little less than halfway. So I still got to have some time before
yeah,
I need to, but also want to get on it sooner rather than later.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And no need to rush if you need to work these hours anyways, and
Mhm.
just gains you more experience.
Definitely.
Yeah. So I think you said you went right from your internship, then you were hired. or working at
Yeah.
Pinecrest and were hired to continue on then?
So, um, so I was working at Pine Rest in the world of residential, so working with adolescents. And I was also I was doing what was called aftercare. So after these kids were discharged, either somewhere else or were adopted or had gone elsewhere, I had followed them for 6 months just to make sure that everything was going well, providing them with any services necessary. But my internship was through Adolescent and Family Behavioral Health Services, the private practice that I currently work at. So my internship was there, but I was also working at Pine Rest and doing all of that. So once I got done or getting closer to the end of graduation, kind of trying to figure out what I wanted to do afterwards. So kind of my two options were private practice and continuing at Adolescent and Family, where I had done my internship for the past 8 months, or being able to be a therapist in agency work at Pine Rest. So I had interviewed at both places, had the opportunity to kind of figure out, weigh my options and pros and cons, because those worlds are very different. They both have a lot of pros and different cons to them. So I ultimately ended up going and sticking with Adolescent and Family, which was the private practice, and where I had my internship at that entire time.
Yeah, sounds like a nice transition then.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And imagine kept some of your same clients and then added more.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So that piece was definitely helpful in, you know, you're going from only having 10 to 12 clients to now you can have an entire caseload up to, 25 to 30 clients. And if I already had a few, then adding a bunch more would be, kind of hectic. I'm doing 25 intakes all at once. So it was nice to already have developed some of those relationships beforehand as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I bet that was. So can you tell us, I'm not sure if there is a typical day, but what does a day in the life of a therapist, couple family therapist look like?
Yeah. Um, so being in private practice is definitely different than I think it would be if you were in an agency. Basically, all my time is really clinical hours. So, meaning I'm normally every hour I'm seeing a client. Um, Within private practice, you do have a lot of flexibility with your schedule. So, I really get to kind of choose what I want my hours to look like. So, Mondays, I work from home. And then I'm in the office Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, and then I don't work on Fridays. So that piece has been and was, I think, a huge deciding factor in where I was going. Was I think that flexibility in that um, time management of your life is such a huge piece for me. So that was really nice. But basically, every hour so like yesterday, I worked from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., which not all my days look like that. I had to move something around on Tuesday. So I did have to see different clients. But I basically saw a client from 9 to 10, 10 to 11, 11 to 12, 12 to 1, 1 to 2. I did have a lunch from 2 to 3, and then saw clients 3, 4, and 5. So majority of my days are just seeing clients. On Tuesdays, we do, because we're a DBT practice, we have to do a lot of consultation. So Tuesdays in the morning, we have like 3 hours of meetings where we're talking about our clients, we're consulting about them. How do we be better therapists? What can we do differently? All of those kinds of things. So I think that's something that I really love, that I'm getting continuous support throughout, as well as there's tons of opportunities outside of that 3-hour time on Tuesdays that we also have for support or for consultation.
Yeah, that sounds really
So
important to
yeah,
do. Yeah.
no, definitely. I think, especially as a new therapist, there's so many things that are happening, or maybe you're second guessing or trying to figure out. And I think having people to lean on and to talk about those things with, to normalize some of those things, is super huge, especially talking to client or counselors that have been in the field for much longer than me, that are still or going through similar things that I am, is makes me feel much more confident in the work that I'm doing as well.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really great. Great to have that support system and necessary. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I would think, especially with your type of job, talking with clients all day long. So on
Yeah.
Mondays is when you do telehealth then, if you're working from home and
Yep. So Mondays are specifically just meant for telehealth. On Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, I sometimes do telehealth on those days, but it just allows the opportunity for also clients to come into the office as well.
yeah, you do client preference then on whether it's in person or telehealth.
Yeah, a little bit. So just kind of, I block off my Mondays and say this is just for telehealth clients, but Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday can be for in person or telehealth clients.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay. Did it take you a while to find that work-life balance then?
Yeah, I think I'm still trying to figure that out. So, I started like officially the beginning of January of last year. So I've been, in private practice and doing this work for the last year or so. And I think the fact that I could have the flexibility in my schedule to figure out what works best for me, I think was absolutely huge in trying to figure out that work-life balance. I don't think that everyone always gets that opportunity, and I think it is important to try to find that balance, and not work too much so that you can't help the clients that you are trying to help, and you don't take the time to yourself or do the things that's necessary, because burnout and being overwhelmed and all of those things is very prevalent and very true, and that's something that I also appreciate about um, our practice, is that we talk a lot about that. Like, what does that look like? How are we taking care of ourselves? Those kinds of things. So I think still always trying to figure that out. But I think, having that right schedule, I think having the support at work and at home, um, taking the vacations or taking, the time for yourself, finding that self-care, what refills your cup, all of those kinds of things. Um, and I think in private practice it is also really hard because you are running a business in a sense. So if you don't see a client, you don't get paid. So you have to even be more, I think, in tune with what are you capable of handling in terms of a caseload, and what is going to be too much or too little, or those kinds of things, of still taking care of yourself outside of working.
Gotcha. Yeah. All really important stuff then. And then so for like billing and all that kind of stuff, do you do that? They teach you that in your courses? Um, billing insurances and all of that kind of stuff?
So no, that was, I think, something. So luckily we had like an admin. So being in this private practice, it is we have 3 locations. And we have like admins that do like the billing piece of that. So I'm lucky enough I still have to know a little bit about insurance and copays and deductibles, and it's a whole new world. But I at least have the support of admins, and I'm not having to do that specifically on my own, which is really helpful. But that definitely was one thing that wasn't touched on in school, was what it would mean to be in private practice. I think we could have maybe asked those questions, but especially in internship, I know the one professor that we had was, really great and had experience in both agency work and private practice. So I think those questions could have been asked. But I think that at the time, you're not necessarily even thinking about those things either. So it is a little bit more on the job training in a sense.
Yeah, makes sense. You didn't know
No,
to
yeah.
ask.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that sometimes, that does happen if, you don't know until it comes across, and you can't really ask those things if you don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I just have a couple of questions left then.
Yeah.
The first one is, so do you have any advice for students who are thinking of pursuing counseling or couple and family therapy, thinking of pursuing this route?
Yeah. So I guess I didn't necessarily mention this. So I picked marriage, family, and couple, and I did the extra long internship in order to get that license. But I've decided not to get my MST license. I didn't get all of the hours. You also have to have a specific, I think of the 300 hours that you need in your internship, 150 of those have to be with families or couples. And I didn't necessarily reach that in my internship. So that was a big piece, which it also, to me, wasn't going to change much if I had the license versus not. I still had the knowledge, which I think is the more important piece. And I'll still have my LPC license, but just won't specifically have that marriage family therapy license to that. I guess I just wanted to clarify that. But I think in this field, like my advice would be to get your feet wet in all of the different types of either clients or different areas of therapy. I think there's so many different types of therapy and interventions you can do. So I think asking questions and finding, people that have been in the field or are in the field that you can maybe ask those questions to. I think also knowing that you might feel, and you probably will feel, not super confident and kind of questioning different things. I think that was huge. And I think having and reading different books or talking to other people in the field and knowing that it is normal to feel that way, I think is huge. I'm trying to think what else. I want to give good advice.
Well, I think you've given, really good advice so far. And that, like you said, knowing that it's okay to not feel completely confident.
Yeah.
And that's
It's
where
okay
that
not
support.
feeling okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's where that support network comes in and is helpful. And so, best to kind of speak up if you're not, I would imagine, if you're not feeling
Yeah.
confident.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it doesn't make you any less of a, individual or a therapist. You know, most of the time, everyone's kind of dealing with that. There is this one book that really helped me. It was called Therapy is Awkward. And I read that during my time in my master's program. And that was a book that really helped me normalize a lot of the things that I was going through and a lot of things that I was feeling. Because I think there is a lot of pressure in this field of, you have to, um, know your stuff and be a certain way and do all of these things. And it's okay if it doesn't always look like that. And I think those are like those things that necessarily talked about in school that are also important that you hear on the outside of that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So it sounds like a really good resource then,
Yeah.
that book.
Yeah.
Therapy is awkward. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't, I can look to see if I can find the author of it.
Yeah. Well, even the title,
But
the
yeah,
title can be searced.
it's
So
it's a yellow book. The
yellow
cover is yellow.
Okay, gotcha. I did think of one more question, if it's okay.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So what is on the horizon for you? You'll enjoy your wedding and honeymoon and, start your marriage off, and taking your licensing. So what is on the horizon for you as for your career growth?
Yeah. I think I think one thing that I've learned over the last year of being at this practice is that I really enjoy the work that I'm doing with DBT. So I do a lot of DBT work. We do groups, and I see clients from age 7 all the way to 60s. My bread and butter is definitely adolescents and young adults, which is majority of my clients. But I'm really excited to kind of dive more into DBT, really learn more and be able to develop myself more as a therapist in that way. Um, I also really want to dive into different trauma work and potentially like EMDR therapy. So different things that also can increase my I guess knowledge in the therapeutic setting in that way. So I think continuing to like learn and grow as a therapist in the setting that I'm at least for the next little while. Maybe at some point starting my own private practice. Maybe it's also it's a lot to be able to run a business in that sense and do a lot of that. I would love to, I think have more of like a group practice. So with other therapists or like a psychiatrist, those kinds of things. So yeah, it's kind of, I think still trying to, in a way, figure some of that out. And I think that I'm trying to make those baby steps in the right path of where I want to go, but also knowing I'm still trying to figure some of that out and feeling okay with that too.
Yeah, I think it would definitely, with your field and where you are in your career, it's definitely living in the present would be very important for you
Yeah.
at this time in your life, with knowing that, there's this goal out there, but staying in the present now with an eye towards it. So that makes sense.
Mhm.
And when you are ready to learn those other therapy strategies, do you learn those through continuing ed, like workshops, or on your own? Is that
Yeah.
how that
So I
works?
can kind of both ways. So we are constantly doing different like trainings and things to um, continue to grow my knowledge in what I'm currently doing. But I can also take, different courses potentially or different trainings outside of that in order to, per se, be certified in EMDR. So that's kind of like a training that outside of the practice, which a lot of the therapists at our practice do a lot of EMDR, kind of a normal transition from DBT to EMDR work, which is a lot more trauma focused work. So yeah.
Okay. All right. Good to know. Good to know. So my last question is,
Yeah.
is it okay if students contact you if they have questions about your career and how you got there and different programs?
Absolutely. Yes, please. I think that's something that I think would have been huge if I was in their shoes. I feel like I'm talking to them, but
Yeah.
in their shoes of, having more, support in different places and being able to ask different questions. I think it's definitely huge. So absolutely.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you. I will put
Yeah,
your email address in the episode description, and is it okay to put your LinkedIn link? I don't
most
know if
definitely.
that's what it's called.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, all right, that's great. You might get a lot of requests then for
That's
through
totally
LinkedIn.
fine.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you so much for coming on today and giving us some of your time and your expertise, information. This has been really great information that I think will be helpful for a lot of students.
Yeah, definitely. No, I was happy to do it and happy to be here.
All
Thank you.
right. You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for joining today's episode of the HDFS Career Podcast. I hope you enjoyed meeting Drew Graber today and hearing about the wealth of information that she gave about graduate school and becoming a mental health counselor. Be sure to reach out to her if you have any questions about becoming a mental health counselor, if you have questions for her about the internship process or practicum, and or the program that she went through. She'd be happy to talk with you about any questions that you have. Please join me again soon as we interview other professionals to show you the many options that you have available to you as you pursue your degree in HDFS. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.